5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate very much your generous invitation to be here tonight. You bear heavy responsibilities these days.
Welcome to Stock Legends Radio Show, seeking answers, opinions, and the inside scoop, putting you in the front seat on Wall Street.
In today's market,
this is breaking news. Where is it going next? Also, we have a special guest here today with us. We're very excited to have Mr. Joe Canouse, CEO of Quasar Aerospace Industries, public ticker symbol QASP. Joe, welcome back to the Stock Legends Radio Show.
Thank you. Round two, I guess, huh?
Yeah, round two. You've got it. And we,
thanks for having me back.
The investment community was so excited about the first interview that we did that we wanted to make sure we had the opportunity to bring you back on the show and interview you. You've had a lot of things take place since the last time we had the opportunity to speak with you with Quasar, and a lot of very exciting stuff. So we want to talk about that. For the investors that may not have heard the first interview, why don't you just give us a real quick rundown of yourself and what brought you into the particular segment of business that you're in right now, which is the aviation related industry, and give us an idea of what's been going on since the last interview.
Well, every great story has a tragedy in it somewhere. So I'm a finance major. I was a stockbroker. I've done investment banking. I've raised money for companies all throughout my life. Since 1995, I had my own investment banking firm, J.P. Carey, which became J.P. Carey Securities. And my work there with myself and my brothers, and we've advised small companies, we don't compete for the big ones, on over $2 billion in transactions. And it's a bit of tumultuous ride in the investment markets and finance. And I started investing in small companies. Quasar was one of them that I actually put a merger together with a public company that owed me money and a private company. And I think that goes back to 2000, I want to say 2008, 2009. I'm terrible on the dates. And a lot of things happened. The company had great promise. They started out with an idea to become a flight training academy in the flight capital of the world, Jacksonville, Florida. And they were highly successful as a public company in terms of how their stock traded and their ability to raise money. I gave them additional money. I got my money back. I got a lot of it back. Other people came in, and somehow along the way, the company fell off the rails. They had gone through $20 million. They, at the end, really didn't have much to show for it, and we're still doing an accounting for that. But I was the largest creditor at the time. I don't know how much of this you want to hear, but I got involved because there's tremendous promise in the business. It's one of the things that I've always been attracted to in terms of this particular business model. And what we're focusing on now is its scalability. You can scale up and you can scale down. It doesn't take a lot of hard assets that are fixed to get the business up and going, because as the business grows, you can lease another plane, you can hire another instructor. Those things are scalable. And if business falls off, you can, cancel that lease, you can lay off somebody, and it's not really the fixed cost that a lot of other businesses require and or have in order to gear up. And again, its location, Jacksonville, is ideal for what they're doing. So that's how I got involved in there. Last time I had talked to you, we had talked about where we had gone, where we were. We had made an acquisition of a company out of Colorado called Ascent Aviation. We acquired them because for years, the particular company, Quasar, could not get its 141 approved in Jacksonville, Florida. So we couldn't go over the mountain. We ran around it. We bought a 141 school, a flight school that is 141 certified, and we opened a branch in Jacksonville, Florida. And we did that because it allowed us to then start getting the third-party money in aviation training, which is the VA money and other particular money that is out there. The school in Colorado gets some, and it's in a good location as well. It's in Colorado Springs, and there's a huge military population there as well. So that's what we did. But more importantly, it opened the door for what this company originally promised to be. And we went back to the basics, and that is to start recruiting foreign students. And we applied for an application with the Department of State, and it's for a CVIS application or a CVIS approved school, which will allow us to recruit well, I shouldn't say recruit, but allow us to train students from other countries and actually allow us to apply for a visa for them. And this is huge because there's a very, very strong demand for pilots across the world, especially in some of the emerging economies, India, Asia, even South America. Brazil is having a booming economy, and they're having an increased demand for people who want to learn to become pilots and actually for pilots. I think I mentioned last time the country of Vietnam had actually passed a law, communist country, so I don't know how what the exact wording is, but they were looking to make sure and dedicate money specifically so that they could train their own citizens to become pilots, as opposed to having to hire non-Vietnamese pilots to work for them who were much more expensive. So this particular application will allow us to go and apply for a visa for somebody who wants to become a pilot. They'll get a visa into the United States. That sounds phenomenal. But what's really striking, since we've actually filed for this and it's past the 90-day period, so we're on a any day now type of anticipation when we will receive this. But what's been alarming, not alarming, I should say, but shocking, is the actual interest from people to recruit students for us. And again, this isn't my business. My business is particularly finance. And what we're finding striking is that there are a number of organizations that are, number one, set up to specifically recruit students from different countries and bring them to the United States on programs like this. And the demand is very high, but the demand and the desire to come to the United States for any reason for some of these people is very high as well. So we've actually set up an entire program. I talked about it last time. It cost approximately $59,000 for somebody to become a full pilot from zero to commercial pilot in a 7-month program. And then we've tailored different programs depending on the country of origination, so that when they get their FAA license, there may be some component over in their country that they need to have additional training for. We've accounted for that in their particular program, so they can go back to their country of origination and become a pilot in that country if they want to. And then there are additional opportunities as well for additional visa opportunities to stay here. But everybody wants to come to America. And a number of these programs, for people who have a high desire to, there's a program called EB-5. And again, that's not my specialty, so if I mispronounced it, but it's a program wherein people want to come to America, have to invest $500,000 to get a visa, and then they get a temporary visa to come here or temporary residence card. Can take up to 2 years to get that particular visa because you have to apply for it. You have to put the money up front. The program has to get approved. The particular investment that you're making or being a part of a pool would have to get approved. And then your visa has to be approved on top of that. So there are people willing to pay $500,000, of which they lose on average about half of that money in the investment program because it goes to setting it up and the people who coordinate it. So you spend $500,000 to come here. Again, it's a desire to come to America. And coming back to our program, it's cheaper. You get a real skill. And there are still people who want to come here, who have high skill level, who be successful as pilots, whether in the United States or in their country of origination. And this is a great program for them.
It's such an exploding industry that I read here on foxnews.com. This is an article that was just published recently. They're saying that by 2031, there's going to be a need for 465,000 new pilots worldwide. Also, as an addition, a forecast includes that 69,000 new pilots are going to be needed in North America alone. Now, leading the race is an estimated 185,600 new pilots in the Asia-Pacific region. So you're saying that these pilots will actually be able to come to America, train, go through the flight school, and then they'll be able to go back to their country and be able to pursue becoming a pilot in that particular region?
Yes. What we have set up now, we announced a couple weeks ago that we'd already entered into, and it was kind of jumping ahead of where we are right now. But I was talking about earlier, not only the interest, but the interest from people to provide this service for us as a business to recruit students for us. We'd signed a MOU with a recruiter out of India to recruit students from there for this training. And we designed a program specific for them so that when they're done, not only will they have a license in the United States, but when they go back to India, if they choose to, they'll be able to get a license there as well. Bill Sermo, my chief operating officer, was here. He would tell you the exact designation, and I'm sorry I'm not that specific about it, but yes, that's true. We've also had, as I said, interest from other places, and we are developing a program specifically for students in China. And we may have another agreement in the near future, we believe, with this particular group because they want to recruit students. They said there's a huge demand just talking about it. They know we're not even approved, but they can fill some slots for us for students. And we designed a program for them so that when they go back, or if they go back to become a pilot in any country over there, depending on which country they intend to, they'll have the training for that. And that's important and again, I'm not the expert on this, Bill Sermo is, but some of these programs training foreign students are training them specifically for the FAA without that additional component. And we're not the only school out there. I think I mentioned this in our last interview. There's one down in Ormond Beach, which is also training people out of Jacksonville. I think it's called Sunrise Aviation. They do about $9 million a year just doing training. So for Quasar, it's huge, and we think we're in the right place at the right time. The demand is high. A lot of that demand in the United States, and I'm jumping around here a little, is brought upon by U.S. government law that's going to force a number of pilots into retirement all at the same time. So that's part of the demand. There's demand in the United States, Asia, India, and in South America, and that's really where it's exploding. So we think we'll have enough students, probably more than we can handle, and we're probably going to limit our first and second class, announce them as they build up to a certain size so that we can iron out all the kinks. And again, once we get it all ironed out, we have 2 locations in Jacksonville and in Colorado Springs, and we will just start recruiting them and gearing up as demand dictates. Additional flight instructors, additional planes, additional space. That's something that we've been waiting for and something that this company had promised their investors when they started. So that's what we're focusing on now, and it's highly profitable. I think the margins, and I mentioned them in our last interview, on a $59,000 program, I think our margins, depending on the number of students, there's a lot of economies when you start training 16 students per instructor at a time, get into the high 30s, low 40%.
That's a huge profit margin. It's actually such a large issue that's coming up right now that Carl Davis, Chief of Pilot Services for Boeing, said we have airlines around the world as they buy our airplanes and come to us on the training side of the house saying, we're struggling to fill pilot seats. Can you help us? And this is an exact excerpt, and also says U.S. industry and government officials are also concerned that the rising global demands for pilots, combined with the anticipated wave in pilot retirements and tougher qualification standards for new pilots that kick in next year, will create a domestic shortage as well and open a huge opportunity for training facilities. This is an exact excerpt from FoxNews.com, and this article was just published right here in February 2012. So it goes to show you that this is a headline establishment that's taking place. They're forecasting in the industry that because of these retirements that are going to be forced, the higher qualification standards, and the rise in the need and the amount of people that are traveling via plane. I mean, if you even think back 10 or 15 years ago, the average person might fly on a plane maybe once in a lifetime, or maybe once every 5 or 10 years. I mean, I don't know about you personally, but I've been on 15, 20 planes this year alone, and I would have never imagined it, even going back just a few years, how much it's changed in such a short period of time.
Well, even as inconvenient as it has gotten, and I'm in Atlanta, it's very difficult to fly out of here, but air traffic is up again. And so the economy is not where anybody wants it to be, at least from my standpoint. And there's still this huge demand. There's a huge demand for pilots. It's kind of ironic. We touched on it last time, and just a side note, but you have people going to colleges spending anywhere from $15,000 to $50,000 a year to get a degree where they don't specifically have a job waiting for them. We know that there's a huge demand for pilots. It's actually has some kind of sex appeal to it as well. Being a pilot, seeing the world, you can become a commercial pilot and get that license in 7 months for $60,000. The additional hours are required, but think about the cost benefit of that versus racking up a lot of debt for 4 years and hoping you get a job. So, and obviously the demand goes without saying, but I'll say it anyways, as the demand increases for pilots, their pay is going to increase. So it'll go to the highest bidder. We think we're in a great space right now. There's ancillary businesses that shoot off from that and that we could talk about, that we've discussed internally. But right now, we just want to focus on getting this done. We got the 141 school, hoping to get SEVIS very shortly. As of our 90-day check, usually you can request a status update if there's a problem. They have what they call a RFE, which is a request for evidence. Meaning they want more information. We haven't had that. It's just a matter of we're in line, and it could happen next week or it could happen next month. But we think it's a matter of when, not if at this point. So we are focusing on that, and we're focusing on starting a pipeline in terms of programs and in terms of what countries we want to specifically recruit from and partners over there that can help us do that. So that's very mundane. It's more details than I'd care to discuss in this particular call, but they're all being ironed out, and they were actually ironed out a year or 2 years ago with Mr. Sermo. But again, the company had never taken those steps. So we're back on track. That's what we're focusing on, and we're focusing on a business that we think will be able to, we know we can provide the service. We have third-party people who are going to recruit for us, which is great because it doesn't cost us any money. We have high margins. We'll be able to better project our business for our investors as well. I mean, if we know we have X amount of students, we know we have X amount of revenue, we know how that comes in, allow us to manage that as opposed to hoping that something happens.
As an addition also, if you go to the site here, which is QuasarAero.com, typically in these kind of situations, we're left with a limited amount of information when we go to one of the sites. But for the investors here that go to the site, you're going to be able to sit down and take a look here. I mean, this is a serious setup that you have spread out across your facilities here. I mean, you've got a category, excuse my Roman numeral, I believe that's 5 simulator, FAA CATS testing center, VA approved Part 141 flight school, and insurance approved training. So, I mean, this facility is already set up and ready to cater to these international pilot communities.
It is. And for new investors, it'll be something that they'll find out. For our legacy investors, they've known this all along. I mean, this was, I think at one point this company was trading at a $20 million market cap. There were some big things going on in the aviation industry. There's tons of money in there, and there's tons of opportunities. And they had built this elaborate infrastructure. They had partnered with Hurlong there in Jacksonville. They have a great relationship with them and geared up for this, and they were ready. And then the management got off onto another tangent that they're going to do this and they're going to do that. And this infrastructure was set up. And to me, it's reliable. I mean, people are spending money on education to the degree that you can get third-party money from the VA, that you can get it from foreign students who come over here and they pay cash. And a lot of the top universities, that's why they recruit those types of students. It's been there from day one. And that's, to be honest with you, I get excited about, in today's market, distressed debt situations. Walking in, being able to fix something up that somebody had already built and turn around and creating value out of it and realizing the value because you bought it right. And that's how I see this. This was kind of a wounded company, and the things that we've had to do to clean it up have not been easy. They've cost some money. We're not promising to be a multi-billion-dollar company overnight. Well, we are promising to bring value by doing this one specific thing that you can wrap your head around. There's a huge demand for pilots. We're set up. We're approved. These licenses are barriers to entry that make us valuable. And we already have people saying, once you get this, we will be bringing students to you. So it's exciting for me, and I get excited about different things, and some people don't. And I've been doing investment banking for a long time. I like real businesses with real assets, and that's what this company has. And it's not hard to really understand what we're doing. Training pilots, we're charging this. Somebody else is bringing them in through the door. We've got a huge margin on it, I think, relative to some other businesses, and we know we can deliver.
If you don't mind, since you have a numbers background in finance and you're very familiar with the way the market works, with Quasar, I mean, what kind of flow of pilots are you guys looking or expecting to get into the door? How many seats can you fill? And with what kind of time periods for them to go fully through the class and before we start actually filling those seats to the international community?
Well, if we were approved today, we'd probably fill up our first class with no more than 16 people. And we'd want to do that for specific reasons I won't get into here. 12 would be the ideal number, 16 would be the max. And we would start that program, and then we would start filling up for the next class 60 days after the start of that class. And again, there's a number of different reasons. Ideally, once we make sure that everything is in order, every glitch that could be imagined, we have an answer for. We have the ability to have the program not skip a beat. We would ideally bring in students every 30 days. They would start and they would just have different classes at different times. And I'm not going to go through the full program because I'll sound like an idiot to anybody in the aviation industry. But that's what I talked about, being able to project on a regular basis what our anticipated revenue is.
And that's at what cost per student again? You said roughly
$59,000.
$59,000 per student. So you got 16. So you're around $750,000-$800,000 per class, and that would be a turnover of roughly 30 days before booking the second series.
Right, and again, I don't know how the accountants would do it, but number one, here's how they're paying. They're paying an application fee, small amount like $1,500. There's fees associated with applying for the visa. But once that's approved, they're going to pay 1/3 of the balance. Once they arrive, they pay the second third, and then halfway through, they pay the third. Or they pay the balance of the entire fee. Pardon me there for a second. So we're getting we're getting 2/3 approximately of their entire fee before they even step into a classroom.
That's amazing.
Well, it's amazing from a cash flow, but once you have those students, you still have to make a commitment if you need additional assets. And by the time we have a second class, we're going to have a second simulator in there.
Now, what's the cost of a second?
There's a 90-day lead time on that. And again, once we get approved, we might just go ahead and pull the trigger on it and get it because we think the demand's there. But we'll be able to manage cash flow. We'll be able to project our cash flow. We'll be able to have what we feel a lot of wiggle room in there in terms of, because our margins are high, to make other commitments that are necessary if we think that we can expand the classes without disrupting them.
Exactly. And also having the relationships to be able to fill those seats as fast as they can come in to an international community. I see that you've really seemed to put your focus on India, which is a very strategic market right now. Having those third-party utilizations to be able to fill those seats, I mean, more or less, you're just taking numbers at that point. You know, once the second simulator is in place and you're able to run the two classes in conjunction with each other, you're going to be able to turn them over on a 60-day period. I mean, it's going to be one after the other, more or less, as far as the investment community and being able to take advantage of the program.
We believe so, and part of our main interest in India as well is A, they have an interest, but B, their English is probably, for the people that will be training, is probably the best. So that'll be one obstacle that we won't have to overcome and allow us to go through there. But, and again, if I will tell you that those are great problems to have, and then your biggest concern is making sure nobody gets in an accident. So we do have a great safety track record that, again, Danelle and Bill, they would bring it up and they would tell you that's our number one goal. I mean, obviously we want to bring the students in. We're still going to make sure that we deliver the quality training that we've been able to in the past with the safety, but we're excited about that, and we're excited about the types of students that have already expressed an interest. We are not allowed to go out and recruit anybody prior to getting this, and therefore we haven't at all. But we have had people express interest to us. I mean, just randomly out of the blue, not just people who want to recruit people who have students who want to come over here, but random people. Some of our other instructors, they've trained some pilots at another company that went back to India, our pilots, and they have friends who want to come over. And not one, not two, like a dozen. So it's exciting, and we sit here and we wait for this approval. I'll call you the minute it gets done. We'll do another interview and tell you how much interest we have in the first 2 weeks. But it is really exciting. And from the standpoint that some of the people who already own this company, if they've owned it in the last 6 months to a year to 3 years, and some of them have been through the ringer, this is what the company promised. I was there when they did the merger originally to become Quasar, and it's a good, solid business. business to build a foundation on. And that's what we're trying to do. Get back to the basics, build a business, have bread and butter, have numbers you can project. And then there's other opportunities in the business, but you want to make sure that you don't miss out on something that's giving you a paycheck and that, ringing the bell every day in terms of the business and making money.
And from an investor standpoint as well, we've got a share structure that's constantly updated. I mean, your share structure is just updated on 9/26/2012 with a float of under 5 million shares, an OS of 30 million. So, I mean, you've got full transparency as far as the share count's concerned. And for an investor, the important times to invest in a stock is either A, I've always been a depreciated investor, as you mentioned a little bit earlier, but also, when you're going into a pivotal moment and you want to take a look at the market in general, the growth within the market segment. You want to take a look at the position of the company and are they close to walking into a huge doorstep. So, I mean, a lot of the investors don't understand that once that big press release comes out or the volumes start coming in, you're not going to have the opportunity to go in and grab shares around a penny. I mean, less than a penny, 52-week range around 51 cents. I mean, we're around a penny now. So there's a huge opportunity with a limited amount of shares in the market to be able to go in as a value investor, grab shares, and hold on to those shares in lieu of these things that are going to be coming to the table, I mean, within no time. These are already baked in the cake as far as whether or not certain things are going to take place. So it's a huge opportunity. And there's also a big kicker as well that we touched on the last interview, and that's a case that you guys have going on, a lawsuit that's from way in the past. And if you want to talk a little bit about that as well, it's been something that's been undergoing for a long time coming now. But when and if things do come to the table for that, that's going to be a giant boost for the Quasar investors. Do you care talking about that for a moment?
I'll talk about that in a second. I just want to touch on something you said, which is, we do try and be transparent and try and make sure that our reporting is done as best as possible. And I'm a big believer, and especially in today's world, you're a non-reporting pink sheet company. You don't necessarily have the obligation, but you should try and provide as much information as possible to your investors and information that they can rely on. To that degree, when I first came in, I made one of those promises, whether it's good news, bad news, or whatever, I'm going to disclose it. And I'm one of those CEOs who has never been a CEO before, to the extent that, this real operating company for long term. Let me rephrase it. I'm a CEO who doesn't want to be the guy who isn't disclosing information to his shareholders and gets in trouble. I have a background as a Series 7 stockbroker. I was a manager. I owned a brokerage firm. I lived in a compliance world. And I am not an expert on all of these things, but I do believe that, not failing to disclose, you're going to have to edit some of this. But failing to disclose this information is something that can come back and haunt you as an officer. So we've taken those steps to do that. We also reported as a supplemental information on OTC markets, the security ownership of all of our officers and directors and beneficial owners. To date, I took back pay for myself in the form of shares as of September, as well as Danelle, our president, and Bill Surmer, our chief operating officer, because we believe in the company. And we think the timing is right. Goes back to what you talked about as a pivotal moment. I'll take my chances on the company right now. That's what I said. And I could have just accrued the debt and collected it later if and when we make money. I think it's good time for me to just take the back pay in stock. And like I said, they concurred. In addition to that, and you'll see this on this disclosure statement, we had recently made Jimmy Carter the CFO of the company, and he has public company experience. He's been getting the books up to date. There's been some gaps that we haven't been able to fill. Since I took a management position with the company last year, we are getting close to the point where I think in the first quarter of 2013, we will start getting audited numbers and we'll make a move to be a fully reporting company. A lot of people say that. I'm not making any promises, but that's the direction that we're going into. And that's the way that we've been keeping the books since I've gotten in charge, so that we can move towards that direction. And that would entail obviously getting an auditor, and then either filing a Form 10 or an S1. And there's some debates about that I won't get into on this interview. But either way, we would make those steps, and it allows us to do bigger things and actually move faster because our currency will have more credibility. And obviously more transparency, more disclosures, more risk for the officers and directors by doing that. But we think we're there now. We think that we'll have all the gaps filled in this last quarter, and that's the direction that we're going to.
And for the investors also, it has to build confidence in the fact that you guys are taking your payment in shares, because, you know, you have to believe in the company. You know, I mean, it's not like, you know, the shares are being irresponsibly handled. I mean, that's obvious in the current share structure, the share count, which again was just updated not even a couple weeks ago. And that builds a lot of confidence, you know, stating that, hey, you know, they're willing to take future money on the shares. So obviously that kind of mindset, one would assume that you're expecting to see an appreciating value. I mean, no one's going to take that offer if they're expecting to see a drastic reduction in share price.
Well, I mean, part of these interviews and part of me talking to you is, you know, to hopefully promote the value of this company. And I think it's a value proposition. If you look at the market cap, you know, 30 million shares at 2 cents, call it. That's $600,000. We're a real business. We have real assets and we have real operations. So it's a ridiculous valuation in my estimation. What is a fair valuation? I can't put a number on it. I think you could put a number on the value of the licenses, the assets, the vehicle itself, the business operations. But again, I think the ability to take my paint stock at those prices, it was a no-brainer for me. And then when I did it, subsequently, Danelle and Bill asked if they could do the same thing, because they've never done that before either. And of course they can, and that's where we are. So I think it's when you said pivotal moment, I think it's one of those pivotal moments, and I'm willing to take a chance and be a shareholder in the company, even to the extent that I'm going to be restricted for a year. That's where we are. Also, Jimmy Carter, our CFO, did not. He came in originally doing the books, and he didn't feel comfortable even becoming an officer of the company until he got to a certain point where he had some visibility on the numbers. He's there now, and that's why he's willing to take that position. And when you run public companies, having a CFO and somebody who actually understands the math is vital as well. And I've known him for years, and I literally trust him with my checkbook every day.
Right, exactly.
He's a good man, and he knows what he's doing, and he's done it before. You mentioned this. I don't know if you want to touch on it, but well, before we do, one of the other things that it's out there, it's disclosed. But for other investors who had looked at this company before, there's one real huge overhang on it, and that was its capital structure. I might have mentioned this in the last interview, but that we were working on it. But this company originally had preferred shares that had extremely egregious provisions in it. They were supposed to expire after 2 years, and there was a reason it was done. They didn't, but the preferred shares used to convert into 6/7 of the company, regardless of how many shares were outstanding. So vague enough too that you could convert 1/3 of the preferred shares, and they'd convert into this strange formula and convert the rest later into even more of the company. And what we promised is once we got through some visibility on how this was going to shake out in terms of our litigation, who was in control of the company, what they could do, we were going to amend them, and we did, and we filed that designation. The preferred shares have now been amended so that they convert into a dollar basis, and each share is worth $100, and it's convertible at a discount to the price on the day that they convert them. So the dilution and the overhang and the absolute control of the company no longer resides in the preferred shares the way that it had prior to. I mean, it conveyed permanent control over the corporation, and that's no longer the case. Potential investors, and setting us up for potential investment as well, those people will be able to evaluate an investment a lot more accurately than we have in the past. And that's disclosed as well in our filings of who owns what and how many shares are out there. We thought that was a huge net positive for our shareholders and for the company itself, because as bad as it is for the shareholders, it's not something that, you know, potential investors, whether they're making a private placement investment or people just looking at it from a common shareholder standpoint and wanted to make an investment in our opportunity, they're going to look at that and go, I've got no chance to win. So we've taken the steps we said we would. We voted on it, and we finally filed it with the Secretary of State, and that's on file as well. So
That is an excellent step for investors, and that also adds to that transparency, being able to do the calculations, for the large investors. It's a lot different, putting $100,000 into the company. So being able to get out the calculator and being able to work plus positives and move forward on that, makes it a lot easier to make that decision. Now, there's a giant wild card also here. I just mentioned a moment ago, as far as a case and a litigation that's currently open, and which could potentially open the doors for a huge influx of revenues for Quasar and in return for the investors, which will have an immediate effect on the current share price. Do you care talking about the open case that you guys have and where you are in the process with that?
Well, just to give you a recap, and as I said earlier, Quasar had raised, and there's a lot of controversy about it, had raised $10 million at least. And the question is, where did that money go? Well, some money went to this company, some money went to that company, some money was loaned to this person, etc. One of Quasar's biggest investments that they made was they made an equity investment originally into a company called Mindseeker. And it was a brainchild of Dean Bradley, our former CEO, and Mike Kendrick, who is the founder of a nonprofit organization in the UK called Mindseeker Foundation. And they had come up with an idea to commercialize, and there's a commercial aspect to that particular business, the detection of mines in certain countries that would free up those assets, whether it's oil or agricultural or minerals, to be developed. And on the surface, phenomenal idea. They had a technology radar that they believe would allow them to locate the mines so that these plate things could be cleared up more accurately, and more importantly, from a business standpoint, as opposed to the humanitarian standpoint, commercialize these properties. BP can have a lease for millions of acres in Africa, and if it's designated a mine, they get to keep that lease and they don't have to develop it. Doesn't make them any money. It doesn't make the country where they have a lease any money. It just sits there and it's not being demined, and it's dangerous as well. So that was the idea. Quasar had various forms of of this particular investment that was finalized as a loan to Mindseeker, as opposed to its original form. And again, it went through many variations of buying a stake in this company directly from Mike Kendrick. And so they had memorialized it as a loan, and we are seeking $1.7 million from them. Long story short is we're in litigation. Most recently, their current counsel has withdrawn as counsel, and they may or may not get somebody else. Regardless of whether they get another counsel, we believe that we will be bringing this claim shortly against them. We will file. If they don't have counsel, we'll get summary judgment. And then it's up to us to monetize that judgment, which in a public company you can. And again, it'll be a lot of work, but I think the payoff for $1.7 million, if we do get a judgment, is there. I also had acquired a control block in the public company NHSH, which then had merged with Mindseeker. So Mindseeker itself is public, of 442 million shares, of which I assigned personally to the corporation, and that's part of our litigation. So we have a litigation for this particular claim and against this particular in Mindseeker for a loan, which we believe we can get judgment on, and for a control block in the public vehicle that is the parent company of Mindseeker, that will give us control and allow us to monetize our particular claims against them. So how that ends up in litigation, you never know. You never know if you're going to win, but we feel pretty confident. Our attorneys feel pretty confident that our claims are solid. There is a downside to it since I spoke to you last, is that the public company side of Mindseeker, which was NHSH, traded, anywhere between 5 and 15 cents with good volume. I don't know if the litigation is wearing them out, or I don't know why, but since then the value of the vehicle and therefore our potential claim is somewhat more difficult to collect because the vehicle is in essence going dark. They failed to report, they've dropped their TA, and a number of other things. But I've been in, without getting too deep down this rabbit hole, without tooting my own horn, I've been in litigation for 15 years, just the nature of what I do. And I know how to monetize a debt. I know how to monetize a judgment. It's not easy. It's not ideal. But the bottom line is that we have a claim. We're going to pursue it. And we think we have multiple venues to pursue them, whether we do it against the public vehicle NHS or Mineseeker or the principles of Mineseeker. We will pursue it. And collections and judgments are just something that unfortunately have become adept at, because not everybody pays, and that's when you really have to go to work. The best case for us is we have solid claims, and we're moving past the litigation against us. We did get summary judgment against the former CEO who had counterclaims against us, and we're going to close off that part of the litigation. We also have, talking about all this money that's flying around, we have collection actions right now being commenced against Clayton in Illinois. And that is a group that we've had given anywhere from $450,000 to $1.5 million. That crazy stuff. There's another $100,000 out of Washington for a plane that was never delivered, which is fairly easy to collect. So we're still picking up pieces, and it's been a year and a half since I've gotten here, and there's a lot more to go. So the wild card is really that this particular company, Quasar, had raised a lot of money. It had badly abused its shareholders through dilution and had lost a lot of money. It is what it is. We went in there, we cleaned it up, and what we found is we got a great business that we're focusing on. We've got great people that have stuck with us and are working hard to see it, and they're capable. They're more than capable of delivering on what we're doing right now. And then these small little nuggets that we keep finding in the trash in terms of collections, litigation, and potential windfalls could be in the millions. And I say millions, it could be anywhere from 1 to 2 million, maybe 3 or 4. As crazy as it sounds, that 442 million shares was worth, what, $20 million out of nickel when NHS was trading there. And again, I don't know what goes on in their company, but that is a claim we're going to pursue. And if we have to fix up the vehicle ourselves, we will. So, like I said, the good thing is we have a solid business for people to say, I want to be part of this. They can see the growth in the industry and the fact that we're in the right place at the right time with good people. We don't have a huge infrastructure, so we can build that as it goes. And as I said, scale it up and down. And we have these other little nuggets that are, as you said, wild cards that could potentially give us additional value above and beyond the proposition that we have now.
Exactly. And coming at a current share price right here, if we take a look at the stock chart, I mean, you've got a long time support sitting around the 7580 mark, which is right where we're sitting at right now, which seems from a technical standpoint to be a perfect opportunity for a reversal. For the technical traders that take a look at the chart, it's pretty easy to see what could go on there. We're looking at a stock that's oversold. I mean, the RSI is coming around 37, and recent volume coming into the stock would give the idea that the stock price per share could be ready for a potential move. So based on the technicals, I mean, it looks fantastic. There's a lot of wild cards, an exploding industry, and you guys have a phenomenal business and lineup. I mean, your chain of command there's exceptional. They know the industry. I mean, your locations are phenomenal. I mean, if you go on the website and take a look at the technology and current setups that you have for these pilots is, I mean, it's top notch. I mean, it's no fly by night type of program that you guys are running. I mean, it's an extremely technologically advanced center or centers that you have that are ready to open the floodgates here. So it's an exciting time period for the investors right now. What are you feeling as far once we start getting these students in internationally and start taking care of a couple of these loose ends as far as open judgments and things of that nature? I mean, the headlines, everyone's talking about the pilots. I mean, are you guys going to focus on the locations that you have right now, or do you have any future expansions in mind? What are your plans for the next 3 to 6 months, if you can even share any of that with us?
Again, we're just going to focus on what we are doing right now. And we think we'll have more than enough business to keep us busy as we get this. I think the first 2 or 3 classes are something that we're going to handle like a baby, trying to anticipate what problems we have, even if they don't arise, so that we have a system where we can bring people in every 30 days. And then we're going to focus on growing the business and scaling it up. And then, creating a situation where that value is reflected in our stock. I don't do technicals, but I don't think that that the company where it's priced right now represents its full value currently. And certainly if this particular catalyst, the CVIS application, is granted, I think it's extremely undervalued. So at that point, I'd be able to make projections in terms of what I think the company will generate in revenue, what it can generate in terms of actual earnings, and then give a longer case. And I'd love to come back and tell you, hey, we got this. This is what we're doing. And if that comes up, I will absolutely give you a call and say, let me tell you what we're doing now.
Yeah, that sounds great to me. We love to have you on the show and keep us updated with all these establishments as they kind of come to. The industry itself is extremely exciting with all the opportunity that you see, in the headlines. And I mean, it's just an exploding industry. I mean, the world is more interconnected now than it's ever been in the past. Like I said before, 10 years ago, someone didn't hop on a plane and fly out to Europe. It might be a once-in-a-lifetime event. I mean, these days, everybody's flying, weekly, monthly, you name it. I mean, a lot of people are flying in just for job opportunities. So the market as a whole is changing. And, being able to get somewhere fast and safely, there's a huge need for it. And I mean, the growth within the industry, I mean, anybody can look online and look at the projections. But the qualified programs and the pilots, it's a huge missing gap within the industry. I mean, they can't fill the seats. So, being able to bring them in, have them assisted as far as getting the citizenship and all their paperwork in line to be able to go through the course here. I mean, you're not dealing with normal numbers, from within the U.S. alone. Opening those international floodgates, you should have no problems at all filling those seats. So, as an investor, take a look at the next, couple months. What's to come in the next couple months. Take a look at the industry, and you should be able to see a path where, the stars are lining up. A lot of exciting things can happen for your company here in the very short term.
Absolutely. And that's, part of the reason why I'm welcome to be here and we're glad to be here. And I think timing is everything. So we think we're on a precipice of changing this company in a way that other people have been promised. It hadn't come to fruition, and that time is now. So, and it is literally any day now. Once you go past 90 days, you can't. The irony is, it's without slamming the government. It is a government process, and so we're in line. We can't even see where we're in line, but generally you hear something within 120 days. So we're on day, and I literally count down every day. I think day 97 today. So we're excited. We're excited about where we are, that we've actually gotten here through a lot of obstacles. There'll continue to be some. We just work through them. So I appreciate you having me on, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk about this company. And like I said, I think it represents a phenomenal one.
Mr. Canouse, we agree. We also, again, we want to send the investors to QuasarAero.com. There's a lot of resources on here for you to get your hands on. There's a CEO blog which goes through some of the recent establishments here and talks about a lot of the benefits and, how the average pilot will spend a couple $100,000 going through a 4-year school and not even get a job, as opposed to a program here where, you're under $60,000 and the opportunities open up. You got a special nod from Mentor magazine. I mean, there's a lot of really good, valuable information for the investors to get on here and take a look. You got your executive profiles, subsidiaries. You'll be able to get a good feeling of what the company is all about, if not from the CEO interview, definitely by going on the website. It's really designed to be able to give you all the information needed to make an intelligent investment decision, and that's what we're all about. It's difficult investing in today's market. It's a volatile market. There's a lot of negatives going on in companies that are business for themselves and not necessarily for the stock price or for the investors. So I feel that Quasar, which is why we brought you on here, the full transparency, staying in touch with your investors, the game plan to go fully reporting, your website that fully communicates the business model and what other people within the industry are saying. Everything is there on your website for them to take a look at in the industry as a whole. I mean, you can just Google it here and look at the headlines, and you'll get an idea of where the industry as a whole is going. And it's actually in somewhat of a panic type of situation where you got the people from Boeing and these major companies coming on saying, hey, help us get pilots. Anybody reading this? Are you go through the pilot school and come in here? So, qualified pilots are, supply and demand is way out of focus. So we take a look at the stock here. It's under a penny. We got a 52-week high of, I believe, around 51 cents. So, and there's more positives going on with the company now than there was then. So you've got the CEOs taking payment in shares, and they can't, they're restricted. So you're protected as an investor. I mean, you have to take a look at all these factors that play out: technicals, fundamentals, industry as a whole, and decide whether or not it's an exciting investment decision. And I think it'll be pretty much clear as day as to whether or not there is or is not opportunity here. We think it's a phenomenal opportunity, which is why our traders here at Stock Legends have put together this research report and put together all this valuable information to be able to present to the community. It's not often that you get such a opportunity that's, timing is of the essence. Timing is everything. And
timing is everything.
And it doesn't get any better than this. Joe, it's been our pleasure having you on here again. We'd like to invite you back also as you get a little bit further through the process. There's a lot of exciting things that could happen literally at any day with the company, which is the type of suspense that we like when we're focusing our attention on a company. And you guys are well deserving of all the effort that we put together here. We'd like to invite you back with any other progress and moves forward, that take place in the coming weeks and months. And as always, it's been our pleasure having you back on.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to everybody there and share our story. We're excited, and we've made a lot of progress, and I think that there's some really great things to go. So thank you again. And like I said, if anything dramatic does happen, I will call you immediately.
It's been our pleasure.